Hello and welcome to another edition of Adam's Music Box, and it's a bittersweet one because it was on this day in 2002 that John Entwistle died. And it was a sad one for me because just months earlier, though it felt like a day earlier, he had performed with his fellow surviving bandmates of The Who at the concert for New York City, and they stole the show. I've done several videos just about that topic, and I've done videos on John, but this time of year just always reminds me of John because I'll never forget. I was driving along and the DJ on, the local station was playing all Who songs. I thought, oh, this is great. It's a Who marathon. And then he comes on and says, he gives us the news that John Entwistle had died. And it just seemed sad because if Keith Moon's death seemed inevitable, as Pete Townsend said, John's death was unnecessary. And I think Pete sums it up well. And looking back at the legacy of John Entwistle, I think he's one of the most important of the three bass players, electric bass guitar players of the 60s who inspired generations of other musicians. The first was Monk Montgomery, the first electric bass guitar player. He, of course, was the brother of Wes Montgomery, and he really blazed a trail that not too much later, John Entwistle and Jack Bruce would take up. And they really showed the world just how versatile this instrument could be, and in so many contexts. Now, John Entwistle was unique in that the Who weren't necessarily a band of virtuosos, they were a band of geniuses. Pete Townsend, a songwriting and conceptual genius. Keith Moon, a showman genius, though not a technician. Roger Daltrey, a genius of inventing a prototype for the modern rock and roll hard rock frontman. But every band needs at least one virtuoso. So said Ahmet Ertegun, the founder of Atlantic Records, and the Who got theirs with John Entwistle. His bass playing was innovative, creative, and it was bold, but it didn't get in the way. In fact, it was the only consistent thing going on because between the erratic drumming of Keith Moon and the sort of very pulsating guitar playing of Pete Townsend, you've got John there holding down the band, a one-man orchestra on bass. The sound, that classic sound, you know it straight away. He could get it out of the expensive equipment, or even in the early days, he could really get it even out of the relatively cheap and comparatively primitive equipment. That sound, yeah, you can credit the equipment. No, it was in the fingers. Those were those ox fingers that made that sound. And he didn't do too much outside of The Who, but he did some. He did some great solo albums, Too Late the Hero and Smash Your Head Against the Wall. Listen to that. And he did a wonderful supergroup performance, a one off in Japan with a band called The Best. You know, they were being humble, and it was John Entwistle, Keith Emerson on the keyboards, Jeff Skunk Baxter on the guitar, the great Simon Phillips on the drums, Joe Walsh on guitar and vocals. The whole thing was great, and it really showcases the versatility of John's playing, which is just as good outside of The Who as it was in The Who. What a great musician he was. His understated, sardonic sense of humor, which really comes out on his solo albums, and of course, that wonderful bass playing. We'll always remember one of the three greats who helped to popularize electric bass guitar as an instrument that everyone wanted to do something unique with. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.